This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, and it is number 12, Prayer at Noon. The sun shines high in the heavens, everything is fully awake. Awaken thou me likewise. Thou art invisible, yet thine energy flows through the rays of sunshine. Fill my veins with thine invisible rays, making me strong and tireless. As the sun shines in the busiest streets, so may I behold thy rays of protecting love in the crowded places of my life's activities. As the light shines steadily, undisturbed on the street, whether crowded or empty, so may I hold my calmness and my strength steadily while I move through the crowded or empty streets of life. Give me strength. In what I receive, teach me to share with others. Hello, friends. My name is Tandava, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I'm going to start with a story. Does this sound okay? I'm hearing interesting things. A long time ago, and a long way away, there was a planet very much like ours, inhabited by a race of seemingly fairly evolved beings, not dissimilar to ourselves, who, much like us, grew rather dissatisfied with the material world and took to wondering what it was all about and if there was any point to anything. And being much like us here in Silicon Valley, they decided to find the answer to this question by building a computer. And they built the biggest computer ever built. It was the size of a city. And they turned it on, and they asked it, can you calculate for us the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And the computer said, yes. It will take me 7.5 million years. And the computer sat there and it calculated and it processed, and civilizations rose and fell and religions built up around this computer until 75 million years later the screen came on again. And they said, do you have the answer? And it said, yes. The answer to life, the universe, and everything? Yes. What is the answer? And it said, 42. And they said, 42. And the computer said, yes, I checked it quite thoroughly. I think the problem is that you never really figured out what the question was in the first place. And I happened to turn 42 a month ago. And honestly, a little bit of me was kind of wishing that the magic number would enlighten me, and it didn't. But it's the story, which is from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, as you may know. It's a great example of what happens when we try to rely on our intellect, on building something to figure out actual deep truths. It takes forever, and it's all wrong because we didn't even start in the right place. You know, the reading has Swami Kriyananda saying that it's important to be able to stand firmly on your own 2 feet. And from a typical perspective, thinking from the little self, our ego, it's like, yes, I'm going to do it myself. And these people were great. They took matters into their own hands. They built a computer. They were going to get their answer. But it was their understanding of themselves was not deep enough. It was what they could do externally, not internally. And thinking about this reading, what was coming to me was another of Swami Kriyananda's affirmations, which says, I am strong in myself. I am complete in myself. The joy and perfection of the universe await discovery within my inner being. And the little ego likes the first 2 bits. Yeah, I'm strong in myself. I'm complete in myself. This is great. But the second part tells us what actually is the correct understanding of yourself, the joy and perfection of the universe. It's not the joy and perfection of your ego. It's not the joy and perfection of your intellect. It's the entire universe. And when you go deep enough, into yourself, you find that that's what you are as well. And that's the kind of capital S reliance that this reading is going after. I recently spent a lot of time doing spring cleaning. I know it's summer, but I'm a teacher now, so summer is when I have free time. And so I did a lot of work in my apartment and also helping my mom a lot in her apartment, and lots of scrubbing and cleaning and organizing and all of this. And something you really notice is how much of cleaning is just taking away and revealing what's already there. I cleaned all my windows, inside and out. I even popped out the screens and rinsed out the dust. First time I'd done that in a long time, and it was beautiful, just gorgeous windows now. But there's nothing there that wasn't there originally when the windows were brand new. It was just removal of all the junk that had gotten layered over on top of them. I was on such a roll that I even decided to clean my bangle. I don't know if anybody has done this at home. You get a gas burner with a little ring of the flames, and you bend your bangle into a circle the same size, put it right on the flames. And if you really got a lot of gunk on it, you can actually see smoke going up from it. And you give it a couple minutes on the flame, lift it off, drop it in some vinegar, wipe off the residue, and my sister was visiting, and she looked and she said, "Wow, is it really that color? Is it completely changed?" You can come look at it after service. It's really nice, really shiny. And I was looking at it a lot afterwards. Yeah, I vaguely remember when it used to be that color. But it was always this color underneath everything that accumulated on top of it. This is the natural color of the bangle. This is the joy and perfection of the universe that is within us as well. But that cleaning effort, what was my part in that? I picked up the bangle and I put it on the flames. So I had a roll that wasn't nothing, but it was the flames that went in there into all the little nooks and crannies and twists and turns and burned out everything that was not the original metal, took out all of the impurities. And this is, again, the little self relating to the divine self. We have to bring ourselves to a position of opening ourselves, heart, mind, and soul, to the divine fire, to let it come in and purify us. But even though we have to do that first step, that's not what actually gets the job done. And I was thinking about this during our fire ceremony this morning. If anybody hasn't ever come to the 9 a.m. fire ceremony before Sunday service, please do. It's really one of my favorite things among all my favorite things on Sundays. But the fire ceremony is beautiful. We have an actual fire. It's symbolic, of course, but and we chant 2 Sanskrit mantras, and we put ghee and rice into the fire, symbolizing all of our devotion and all of our karma being offered into the divine. And side note here, if you watched the Sunday service that was broadcast from Ananda Village last week for Spiritual Renewal Week, Jyotish and Devi led the fire ceremony. And when we do this here, we have a little bowl of rice and we pick up a bit and we throw it in. Jyotish was taking heaping spoonfuls and putting it in. And this rice represents our karma, so I'm thinking, that's a good way to get rid of your karma there. And at the end, actually, they finished it all up. He took the bowl. He just dumped everything else in there. Yes, that's how you get it done. Put it all in there. And I was thinking a lot about this fire ceremony, and we do these outer movements to remind us inwardly to raise our energy and offer it to the divine fire at the spiritual eye. The outer ritual is only ever a reminder. And after doing all the spring cleaning and thinking about the fire ceremony and cleaning my bangle, I went on seclusion for a week. And from all the cleaning, I was kind of in the mood to put out some spiritual elbow grease and really scrub away some karma and get to work in a spiritual sense. But then I was thinking about the fire ceremony and, okay, how do I do this in the right way? What is actually my role in all of this? So I don't make it too much about the effort the little self, the ego, is putting into this. And I took the fire ceremony with me to seclusion. It's sort of funny. It's one of those things that always happened at Sunday service, and it was kind of in my head as something that just happened at Sunday service. But anything spiritual is for us to do ourselves. Take it home, do it at home, try it yourself. And I went to the meditation retreat. We can't have open flames, but I took a little electric candle, close enough. It's just symbolic anyway. And every meditation I did, I started with a fire ceremony. I chanted both mantras 7 times. I really concentrated on making it a self-offering. And then I meditated, and the meditation is the same thing. Every meditation, Yogananda said in his autobiography that Kriya Yoga is the real fire ceremony that the Bhagavad Gita refers to. And we should do not only Kriya, but all of our meditation techniques with this sense of offering ourselves completely to the divine. And keeping this image of the fire is such a helpful one for me, because I could just imagine the fire in our fire bowl in the fire ceremony and just putting everything I have into it with every breath. And it's a great way to spend the seclusion. And any meditation, use that focus and concentration to burn up any impurities that you have. And as I started meditating like that over the first few days, the next thing that was coming into my mind was what we follow the fire ceremony with in the mornings, which is our purification ceremony. And Viveka Devi walked us through this morning. And it starts with the words, "I seek purification by the grace of God." And again, this is a perfect phrase. It makes a mantra even, and it has both critical parts. I seek. The ego has to want something better to be trying at all, to do anything worthwhile. But what I seek is purification by the grace of God. We have to remember what actually gets anything done. And I started carrying that mantra with me throughout the seclusion. I found myself brushing my teeth and go, oh, this is sort of like purifying my teeth. I seek purification by the grace of God. I took a shower. I'm cleansing my body. I seek purification by the grace of God. Eating good food to make my body healthy and strong. I seek purification by the grace of God. Reading Swami Kriyananda's writings, feeling it uplifting and purifying my thoughts. I seek purification by the grace of God. And after a while, it starts coming up even when maybe you have negative thoughts or unhelpful feelings, and you want to just give those away. I seek purification by the grace of God. Transform them in that fire. And this is where we get to the concept of abiding in God. That was the phrase from the Bible reading. When it's just there all around you, and you're remembering your place in the grand scheme of things. How our job is to open up ourselves and receive that grace of God, which is always all around us. Master gave us a formula, and formulas are always fun, which is maybe why he didn't give us too many of them. But one famous one, he said, progress on the spiritual path is 25% the disciple's effort, 25% the effort of the guru on the disciple's behalf, and 50% the grace of God. And the guru, of course, is being a channel for God, so that's kind of 25-75. And we're a small percentage there, though he also reminded us that 25% of the whole picture is actually 100% of our effort, so we don't get to slack off. But it's good to keep it in perspective there. And remember that, if God is doing 75% of the spring cleaning on our souls, getting us ready for liberation, there are probably things that he sees that we don't, that he's ready to scrub away that maybe we aren't aware of yet. And the Bible reading talked about purging the vines and cutting off certain vines and letting other ones grow. And sometimes we think we still have fruit on the vines that we want. It seems like that's the one that gets cut off. I was visiting Ananda village once, and I volunteered for a morning in the permaculture garden with Alex and Devidasi. And they took me over to an apple tree, and the apple tree had these huge, beautiful bunches of little baby apples just growing there all over the tree. And they told me to thin the apples. And I forget what the guideline was, but like over half of those little baby apples had to be picked and just tossed. And I was kind of looking at the apple tree going, what, really? Because I love apples, they're beautiful, they're growing great. And I think the apple tree was kind of looking at me going, what, really? But Alex and Devidasi there, standing in the role of the guru in that case, and they knew that if some of those bunches got too big, the branches could break. If we pulled out some of the apples, more of the tree's energy could go into the ones that remain and make bigger, juicier, better fruits. They knew what the end game was, even if I and the apple tree were kind of skeptical. And God is playing that way with us a lot of the times. I think a lot of us have come to Ananda or come to our respective spiritual paths through difficulties in our lives. I know that when my mother first brought me into this temple to see Swami Kriyananda, I was at a point in my life where a long-term relationship had just completely collapsed. I was getting ready to leave a job that wasn't suiting me anymore, but I didn't know what I was going to be doing after that. I kind of felt like everything was in shambles. But the timing was impeccable, because that was the time at which I realized I need something else. I need different answers. I need a different way to be living my life. And I was open and ready for this to come in. And that was 14 years ago now. And this perspective, as difficult as it was then, I can say, yeah, those branches that I thought had fruit on them, they needed to be cut away. Because if I had stayed with that life that I thought was just going to be my life, I wouldn't have made it here, which is where I really needed to be. It's a little consolation. In the moment, it's still difficult, but Divine Mother knows what she's doing when she prunes something away or makes something difficult. There's a principle in business called the Peter Principle. And it says basically that people tend to get promoted up to what you might call their natural level of incompetence, which sounds cynical, though it makes sense, because if you're good at something, your boss is going to see that and give you more responsibilities until at some point you aren't good at it anymore. But it also is a useful spiritual concept as well, because if everything is easy and you're just sitting back, you think that you're doing it all on your own, and you think this 25% of the pie chart that Master gave us is really the whole picture. And Divine Mother needs to remind us that it's not. There's more. You need to expand beyond this. Looking back over my last 4 or 5 years or so, it's been an interesting pattern. I work for the school now full time. But I started out just volunteering once a year for the school play, just playing music. And then about 4 years ago, Gary asked me if I would come in and do math tutoring on the mornings. Okay, yeah, I can do that before I go to my other job. And then the year after that, they invited me to also start teaching singing classes on top of the math tutoring. And it's like, okay, this is a stretch. I have to work with all the grades and figure out how to actually teach singing. And the year after that, Helen asked me to come in and teach language arts. And well, not too much, because what happened just recently is that I'm now going to be teaching the middle school next year. And so that's fresh off the press. And every year I have this sense that Divine Mother is not letting me get comfortable. It's like, are you still paying attention? Still paying attention? Are you trying to do this all yourself? Or are you getting desperate enough to ask for help in the right way from the divine, and to go inside and find that joy and perfection of the universe, not your little egoic intellect or strength or anything, but actually the power of God to do it. And we have the power of God in there. In the Bhagavad Gita reading that we had here, Krishna is saying that whatever is glorious in anybody or anything, that part is me, Krishna, God. And in the passage before that, just leading up to it in chapter 10, Krishna is listing everything that he is, and it's the best of all categories. Among bodies of water, I am the ocean. Among celestial luminaries, I am the sun. Among things unmoving, I am the Himalayas. I love that one. But then he says, among the Pandavas, the good guys, the warriors in the battle, among the Pandavas, I am you, Arjuna. And Swami Kriyananda tells us that in the great metaphor that is the Mahabharata, Arjuna represents the third chakra. That's our self-control, our willpower. But he also tells us that Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita represents devotee everyman. He's the stand-in for all of us. If we could have a conversation with Krishna, with God, what would we need to ask? What would we need to hear from Krishna? Arjuna is having this conversation for all of us. And the last time I read that, I heard Krishna just say, "I am yourself, Arjuna." And he means all of us, not just Arjuna. He's me, he's you, he's everybody. Because what else could we be but God? And that is the joy and perfection of the universe that we can find within us. At the end of the entire battle of Kurukshetra, at the end, when Arjuna is returning victorious from the battlefield, Krishna, who was not fighting but driving his chariot the whole time, he insists that Arjuna get off the chariot first, and Arjuna gets off and he steps aside, and then Krishna steps off the chariot, and the entire chariot bursts into flames and collapses into ashes and dust. And he says, "Arjuna, in truth, your chariot was destroyed long ago. Only I kept it intact so you could continue fighting." So this is us, whatever trials, challenges, difficulties we are moving through in our life, Krishna is holding our chariot together for us. He's keeping it intact. No matter how much it may feel like we're doing it all, we can only do it at all because he's keeping it together. And at some point we will realize that that was what it was, and that power also was within us as Krishna is within us, as we are part of all that is. God bless you.
Thy will, thy will be done. All that I am is thine. All that I nothing of man endures wonder or scorn, but life and death are one.